If we fast forward 12 months, this time next year, what will be the EV profile on your fleets? Maybe start with you, James.
I think it's actually difficult to say. I think we're currently at 17%. With an ambition to have 80% by 2025. But the big barrier to increasing that is infrastructure, and it doesn't feel like there's a kind of joined up approach to that charging infrastructure. Certainly progress has been made. If I look at London, there are more charge points being installed. There's the Go Ultra Low City Scheme initiative that's kind of helping roll out some of those charge points. But it feels a bit piecemeal. It feels like there's not particularly a strategy behind it in terms of where are the most useful points to be and who's going to use those points. And as a car club, we will use those charge points. It's often that kind of chicken and egg kind of thing. Kind of you put charge points in, will they get used if we haven't got the uptake of EVs? We've got EVs and we'll use them. So, if the charge points are put in, and then we'll use them and we can increase our fleet accordingly.
Jane?
Okay, so on the van side, we're kind of sat waiting in anticipation for the manufacturers to give us a product that kind of works for our customer base. We're kind of interested that they have set up these emission-free zones, and there isn't an alternative van that can do a delivery or enter these zones. So we're sort of in the state of uncertainty. On the cars side, we're obviously learning as quickly as we possibly can about the electric vehicles and what's suitable for our customers. We're learning a lot from Europe, actually, because they're more advanced than us on environmental factors. So we're pulling all that together and then sort of sat in anticipation, really, for what might happen. And we're obviously understanding, as you've just alluded to, that the infrastructure is just not there yet. We've heard lots of stories that if you charge your car, you won't be able to watch TV, things like that. So we know that, and certainly in rural areas, there's a big concern about draw on power. So there's still a lot of work to do, I think, is probably where we're sitting at the moment.
Full EVs, probably a couple of thousand in 12 months' time, and to give a sense of context, probably a couple of hundred at the moment. And I think the segment where they will be interesting and attractive is at the top end of the personal market, or the directors in firms, where the early EV vehicles are going to be quite top end. And it's not just because they're expensive, but they're going to come out in quite high profile, as they are today in many ways. There's clearly a number of others that are in the sort of 25 to 30,000 pound bracket, but there's a lot more available in the 50 to 70, and I think that's where the technology, and they'll be very interesting to those drivers because they've got the cash and they'll want to drive electric powered vehicles that are high specification, and there's some really interesting and quite smart ones in the pipeline that we're aware of. But hybrids is probably is where it's at, and we're 15,000 today, and I can see that being 25,000 at the end of this year.
Yeah, I don't see much increase at all on electric. We get many inquiries into the office to acquire vehicles for a particular account that they may have, but the fact is it costs more to buy a vehicle. The second-hand values are unknown, and the gap between acquisition and disposal is probably going to be too high. The customer sometimes wants these vehicles, but they won't pay the rental price or the price you need to charge to cover depreciation on those particular types of vehicles. Hybrids, yes, I can see that growing, but electric vehicles in our market, probably not.
I probably would have agreed with your view sort of 12 months ago, but I would say I've seen the most significant amount of change and perception in electric vehicles, and more so in hybrid, of course, but in the last 6 to 8 months. So I think we will at least double the size of our electric vehicle fleet, and hybrids a lot more than that. So I think it's quite exciting. We've talked about electric vehicles for, 5, 6, 7 years, but actually it's probably only this year where I think it's actually starting to get serious. Before, it's probably more of a token effort. Now it's much more serious.